Welcome to Monday's Market Outlook here at Topkin Options. My name is Matthew Buckley. My call sign is Wiz. Man, what a massacre over the weekend. But let's talk with strategic issues around the globe. Secretary Mike Pompeo said he would, we would meet with Iran without precondition to try and de-escalate things. This is really interesting. The Abraham Lincoln, the carrier strike group, has remained outside the Arabian Gulf. So they haven't passed through the Strait of Hormuz. I know the skipper of the Lincoln, Putnam Brown, the Navy captain, the skipper of the my old boat. We don't want to inadvertently escalate something. And then the admiral of the strike group, I guess they're playing good cop, bad cop, said, hey, man, I can sail this thing wherever I want, whenever I want, and freedom of navigation. But very, very interesting. The looks like the Trump administration doing a little bit of de-escalation here with keeping this carrier strike group outside of the Arabian Gulf. So obviously it does send a big message. I mean, I think at the high point was Iraqi freedom. I think we had like 5 carriers in the Gulf. You could probably walk from the Strait of Hormuz all the way to Iraq and not get wet with British, French, and U.S. carriers. So looking at a little bit of a de-escalation in the Gulf. Down south, the rally in the Bovespa down in Brazil is continuing. EWZ is up another, full percent today, I think. Well, off a little bit here. We might actually leg into an iron calendar. So I sent out a trade earlier to our weekly options member. We have that brief here coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern is our weekly options brief. And then we have our solo Amazon brief after that at 3 o'clock. But we looked at the 41.5, 41 bull put spread. And then if this does kind of roll over and top out here and run out of airspeed, we're gonna leg into a weekly iron condor by putting on a bear call spread up here, maybe right around this 42.5, maybe the 43. That is just an absolute rip your face off rally from this bottom about 2-3 weeks ago. It's a 14% rally in the EWZ, so good looking trade in Brazil. Last week, towards the end of last week, the surprise Mexican tariff out of the president. Because of immigration, they export. It's funny hearing people debate back and forth if this is about trade or if it's about, it's a little bit of both. I mean, when your main export to this country is illegal human beings, that costs this country $132 billion a year. That's a little bit of an impact to our economy. I mean, hell, folks, we can't even take care of 60,000 homeless vets, but we're letting people stream across the border who, aren't vaccinated, of course. I love how New York, sanctuary city, doesn't let people go to school if they don't have their vaccinations, but they don't mind taking people from other countries that we don't even know who they are. Anyway, this obviously doesn't bode well for our potential trade deal chances with China because they just think this guy's a renegade. Kind of a little bit of a de-escalation, though. So the Secretary of Defense was over in Singapore for a Asian Defense Summit, and the essentially the chairman of the Joint Chiefs for the Chinese Army was there as well. A little bit of a de-escalation. I mean, the words were measured, but it didn't get worse. So over the weekend, I guess we could say things are even in a big document Sunday put out by the Chinese I forget which arm of the government. More or less, it said, "Hey, it blasted us, but after every other blast, it said something like, but we are willing to sit down and work, or reach a common solution." So a little bit of a thawing, at least in the trade talks. But again, nothing's scheduled, nothing's firm, and we continue shooting at each other. This is the real issue here, folks. The rare earth, 35% of the rare earth minerals are from China. So companies like Apple would immediately get kicked in the gut if the Chinese decided to say, all that stuff inside those cell phones, you're not getting any more of that stuff. So stocks are kind of wallowing around here to heading lower. We obviously braked a key support level, or it wasn't even support. We stopped there for 2 days and then went lower. I told you the market doesn't trade between moving averages. It either those acted as magnets. You either go through and get pulled back up, or you get pulled down. We got pulled down, and we're heading lower, folks. It is absolutely possible that we go back and retest these December lows. I predicted this, folks. I said this rip your face off rally. The number one buyer year to date of the S&P 500 was who? The S&P 500. Now they're sitting on their hands, and about 2 weeks ago, I laughed as I briefed my members on an article that said, "Hey, here come the hedge funds." So as soon as the hedge funds started to jump in here, now those guys are screwed. Now they got to sell, and they're going lower. But the biggest drag on this market, and I love most of them getting pounded. Don't like Amazon getting pounded, but Facebook. Facebook is in a lot of trouble, down about 7% right now. We predicted this 2 years ago. The FTC and the DOJ to examine how Facebook practices affect competition. Google, same thing happened with Google over the weekend. Antitrust. DOJ launches antitrust. So we got the FTC, we got the DOJ. We essentially have alphabet soup looking to go after these limousine liberal big tech companies. That does not bode well for them. Took 9-10 years for the Microsoft antitrust thing to get figured out and settled. And what happened? That stock didn't go anywhere for 10 years. It sat there. So this is bad news for these guys. Even Amazon plunged below a key technical support level as FTC looked into them. We'll talk about this at 3 o'clock in our solo Amazon service. But take a look at the 2-year performance. Look at Facebook's 2 years ago. I remember being in Aspen on spring break, right around here, a year and a half ago, whenever that was, and saying what? Hey man, get out of Facebook, get out of it, get out of Apple. We had long Apple, we had long Facebook positions, and then I said that's it. The roaches are in the kitchen, and look at this. So look at the 2-year performance of Facebook. Look at this, literally zero. Almost zero performance right there. Dead money. Look at Amazon during the same 2 years. Okay, let's 2-year performance right there, all the way up to there. So 0 versus 70%. Which one would you guys pick? And even Apple. Let's take a look at Apple. Same type of thing. So 2-year performance, 12%. So we nailed it. Told you to short Apple. Facebook told you get in Amazon instead. We're going to see some short-term pain in Amazon. Remember, folks, Facebook really doesn't own anything. There's no real estate. It doesn't have Facebook Air. It doesn't have warehouses. It doesn't sell material or stuff like that. So out of all these, obviously, I'm definitely a believer in Amazon. Down 4.5% right now. That's not a good thing. So at 3 o'clock today, we're going to talk about maybe now getting into a long call diagonal. Last week, on Friday, we actually did an Amazon brief, and I said, hey, for all the new folks, don't get into a new Amazon right now because we might actually be able to get it lower, and it looks like we're going to. Maybe closer towards the bottom of this Keltner channel is when we might reestablish a new position there. So this is getting interesting with all of these tech companies. I think Apple has the biggest to lose in this because not only do they have trade or FTC and DOJ potential issues, they got trade war stuff. I mean, literally, they're saying, people are saying we're embarrassed to pull out our iPhone. I mean, this is becoming it's become pretty serious. I get we kind of took a break over the weekend with yelling at each other, but remember, folks, trade wars sometimes lead to actual wars, and that ain't good. Obviously, we got attacked in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, after FDR placed an oil embargo on Japan. So that was all economics, and then all of a sudden, people are shooting each other. So never forget that this stuff can get very, very ugly very, very quickly. The president did leave open the whole Mexican tariffs. Mick Mulvaney, his chief of staff, actually said that on purpose we really didn't lay out any conditions for not leveling those tariffs. So if the Mexican government in the next week or so kind of does some window dressing, maybe the president won't fire, but they really have to, they got to do something, folks. The only two entities that can do anything to stop this massive flow through Mexico into our country is the Mexican government and Congress. And Congress has obviously said we're not going to do anything, but we're going to impeach this president. And nothing's going to get done in Washington. So obviously Trump's like, all right, well, Mexican government, you guys fix it. So broke a key support level here. We've been nailing our market predictions here. I said volatility is not only going to stay elevated, it's going to go higher. Stayed elevated and went higher. And it's going to stay elevated, folks. Welcome to the new normal for the VIX. The resting heart rate of the VIX is probably going to be around 15 or 16, the middle of this Keltner channel, for the foreseeable future. Until we get a trade deal, volatility is going to stay up here, folks, because until we get a trade deal, we're firing at each other, or we're going to increase fire, and volatility is going to stay up. Remember, whenever you see the word volatility, you cut and paste in the word uncertainty. So the SIBO Market Uncertainty Index will stay high because there's uncertainty in it. So really good trades recently on volatility. Maybe we'll take a look at that tomorrow in our primary live trade brief. And then this week, maybe because Amazon is getting hammered here and is an absolute screaming buy down here at these levels, maybe I'll do a free solo Amazon brief later in the week, maybe Thursday after the close. Let me take a look at my schedule, and for those of you who missed our last opportunity to get in a solo Amazon service, I'll invite you on Thursday, okay? I'll have more details on that in a little bit. All right, I got to get ready for our weekly options brief, trying to get filled on the, got filled on the EWZ bull put spread at the 41.5, 41, okay? And then during the brief, we're probably going to look at legging into an iron condor with maybe a bear call spread. Looks like, this thing had to have run out of airspeed eventually. Look at that. Hang on a second, go back here. Look at that rip your face off rally. Like I said, 14% rally. We're going to get some of this back, probably back down to that 50-day moving average if I had my bet, but running out of airspeed here. 42.5, 43 bear call spread maybe, but we'll take a look at that 1 o'clock. Have a great rest of your day. Happy hunting. Make sure you hedge and God bless. I'll see you tomorrow.